All right, and today we are going to jump all over E3 and talk about some of the greatest things coming out in the next year and a half, 2 years, as E3 is kind of a big deal and they put out a lot of projections. So a lot of the stuff we'll talk about isn't going to come out till next year. But Kid, you excited about some of this stuff coming out?
Oh, it's insane. It's one of the best times of the year just to see what is coming, the stuff that gets official, and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait now that I have the release date. So yeah, it's great. I can't wait to dive into this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many big announcements coming out. Some of it is hardware driven, some of it is software driven, mostly gaming. But however, I think, I'll kind of wrap up the episode, which tonight we're going to put out two episodes back to back because E3 is so big. I mean, there's no way we're even going to broach a third of what's going on, even in a summary
Mm-hmm.
base. But we're going to try to split this up into two episodes so you can listen to it, digest it, go on. But towards the end of the second episode, I'll talk a little bit about some of that hardware and kind of the scope of gaming as I see it and kind of the things that are indicating coming out there. So why don't we get this kicked off? We're going to talk through some of the top 10 things that are coming out there and that were announced and discussed. Some of it was announced prior and some of it was leaked and whatnot, but these are more relevant to what was brought up during the conference. So I think to start off, we'll start with the Xbox or the Project Scarlet, which is due to come out next holiday in 2020. And I think it's pretty exciting. As you see, they've partnered with AMD to streamline their processors, streamline the video, which they've done that for a while, but they coordinate with AMD to make sure it's a proprietary chip and silicone, that they really emphasize the points about getting down into the hardware and making it cooperate with the gaming very, very well. So as we all know, like console is wonderful just because it's plug and play. You can sit down and start playing it immediately. However, you lose some of the graphic effects and all that. And this is going to be one of the first consoles out there, first that are announced, that are going to give you 120 frame per second frame rates. And that's pretty amazing. So that's awesome. I think it comes with good news. So Kid, along with that launch, they're going to launch another game. What is that?
Let's see here. It will be Halo, the most anticipated game. Well, not the most, but very highly anticipated game.
Pretty damn close. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
let the console wars begin with what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So how many hours do you think you've sunk into Halo over your lifetime?
Oh my God, at least 100 in the first one. That's just a game you can pop in, no matter if it's been 1 year, 5 years, I guess 10 years now, 15 now at this point. You can just jump in there and have a good time. It's just an awesome game.
Yeah, I don't know if you call that the grandmother or grandfather of all FPS, first-person shooter combative games, but it is definitely one of the OGs, and everybody is always anticipating when that series is going to continue to expand. It is such a big deal, and it's titled Halo Infinite. So I think that's going to be pretty cool coming out with a new console. I'm sure they're going to optimize it to really show off what that console can do. And here we go. Here's the wars. Now, you got PlayStation 5 coming out there. And again, I deferred to something late in the second episode tonight. We'll kind of talk about where maybe some insight to pay attention to. And then I think Kid always has some passionate feelings about Square Enix, and they've got number 3 on our list tonight, talking about some footage from Crystal Dynamics, and they're going to take advantage of the Marvel Avengers. So, Kid, what are you looking for in that game? Square Enix is always a big name in gaming. What's your thoughts about Marvel Avengers coming out next year?
Man, I think it's going to be great. You can't go wrong with Square Enix. Anything they put out usually is pretty solid. The gameplay looks really good. The graphics look amazing on there. It's going to be interesting just to see what kind of baddies you can kill with it, really.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And you've got the Marvel Avengers namesake with it. That's going to bring a lot of marketing dollars. So I expect this game's hype to just continue to grow over the next year. It looks like it's releasing May 15th of 2020. And we all know how that goes. It could be sooner or later, depending on how
Oh,
the
yeah.
coding goes and optimization. So that's pretty
You can't
cool.
trust them.
Now, I almost wanted to start or end with this next one, but kid, did you get a chance to look at some of the Cyberpunk 2077 trailers
Oh,
or
yeah.
any of the gameplay?
Yeah, the graphics are amazing. It's very interesting. It's a new twist. I've always been a big fan of apocalypse, end times, the futuristic. What is the world going to look like? So this game is going to be great, and it's got a lot of hype. I even believe they said they wasn't going to release it until they were ready, so that's why it's taken so long. But that's perfectly fine. I'm very pleased with what I've seen so far, and it's definitely going to be heavy story driven. So it's going to be great. Awesome.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was one of the biggest aha and shock moments as I was watching through the E3 video clips and some of the live feeds and whatnot coming out when Keanu Reeves walks out on stage. I mean, it just shut down the whole event. I mean, it went sideways. Of course, regardless of what you think about his acting or anything like that, it's one cool dude. Love to have him back in a game like this. But
Oh yeah.
I think this has got to be one of those legacy games that just breaks the mold, if you will. I think it's going to redefine kind of how that is played. I'm excited to see that.
I wonder if they had any inspiration from Fifth Element going into this game.
You got to think some of that. I mean, who hasn't sat down and ignored, or who hasn't sat down at a TV and flipped through the channels, seen Fifth Element pop up there and go, "Oh, I got to watch a little bit of this, if not the whole thing, any given time." So that I think there's going to be some of that. And speaking of that, kid, I was trolling around Facebook the other day and I saw that I forgot about your group that you had out there that conflicted end of days scenario. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, it just died off, man. It was the end of world coming to an end, and all that kind of died off through the media. So it did too.
Yeah, well, no doubt. Maybe Cyberpunk 2077 will bring that back. You got Keanu Reeves backing it. I mean, look what he did with the Matrix.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So that one's very excited, but looking at April 16th of next year, love to see that happen. That's one of those definitely that I'll put aside a lot of time to go in there and check that out. And speaking of huge games that came out, Game of the Year winner, Nintendo put out a little game called Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So the next one that we've got on our list here is a direct sequel, is hinted towards. Didn't get a ton of details on that. However, we know how Nintendo does. They're going to come out with a top grade game that is absolutely will blow people away and compete for that Game of the Year. So, kid, what's your expectations out of the Breath of the Wild sequel?
I've heard a lot of good things about it. I have yet to be able to dive into the Zeldas for a long time. So it's just one of those. I haven't owned a Nintendo since GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
And the hype's going to be real. I mean, it might be one of those that I might have to pick it up just because.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's one I've gone back and forth over and over, which, as you know, if you've listened to any of our cast, you'll know that I primarily focus around PC gaming. Console to me is something I play with my wife or with a friend that I sit down. But if I'm going to sink some hours in, I usually play PC. I got to the point where I purchased a PlayStation 4 last year, didn't play it long, and my daughter took it over, which I've mentioned before, and I just don't play a ton of console. However, that Switch continues to be interesting to me because, Nintendo, they've always done a great job. Anything that they put out there has been a great product. It plays well. It's got good story line to it. It's just a really well-developed program. So I'm excited to see this, and it might push me over the edge. And I think there's a new Switch coming out this year. It might be something to look into to really take part in that the new Legend of Zelda. And maybe one day.
I really am overdue for a Nintendo purchase.
Yeah. Well, you can probably get the Switch 1 on super discount this year, I imagine. and
Yeah.
as the Switch 2 starts to come out. But here we are in the cycle of new consoles, so it's kind of like computing. Beware, if you buy it, there's going to be more coming out soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm with you there. I think that would be a good one. Um, and then don't want to overshadow all the other stuff going on. Nintendo, high five for you guys getting something going on there. And then we had another release from EA, which I know in the gaming community, it is, just crazy noise about EA all the time. Micro purchases, this, that, and the other. They put out some decent games, but they've got, looks like they've got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, story driven action title. So this is going to be, I'm kind of up in the air about this one. What do you think about that? Have you played any of the Star Wars lately? Or
Man, I was a hardcore Star Wars game player back in the N64,
Mhm.
and I haven't really been able to get back into them since. I love the movies,
Mhm.
like what they do there, but the games just haven't really hooked me. I guess because all the other stuff that's out. It's just so difficult to devote a time to all these.
Right. And I agree with you there. I mean, that's I tried to get into the last release, play through some of the um play through some of the single player, did a little bit of competitive play with it, and I don't know. I'm kind of with you that I'm not sure that it translates over to video game very well. Like Star Wars, man, I can sit back and watch the entire series, every episode over and over again, and the story never gets stale. It's fantastic. I enjoy it. But man, just playing the video games, it feels like something, like the whole deal is something to watch, not play.
Yeah, and I've yet to really hear anybody just go on and on and on about the new Star Wars game. So I guess that's part of it too, as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I think everybody's a little reluctant to get too excited because all of the last games in recent history have just been. It's a well built game, which EA does a good job with building a good quality game, but it just never gets to that AAA for me. I know it's got all the
Mm-hmm.
funding and all that stuff behind it, but it never feels like a true AAA title to me.
No, not at all.
All right, so we've got this one is a big one for Kid. I'm gonna let him take this one from the top, and our seventh talking point, if you
So,
will.
yeah. So, coming in at number 7 is Square Enix, the most amazing company in the world, is doing something that they said they wouldn't do, but they are now, and that is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Mm.
Oh, man, this was not my first RPG, but it was the one that I sunk a ridiculous amount of time into and was just great. And this is one of those games where it's like 50% of the greatness of it is the music, and the other 50% is the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Not one outshadows the other. So when I was watching the trailer at E3, they had a lot of that wonderful old music in there with a new spin on it, and all the feel feels just like the old school. The music feels like old school with new graphics. Like they're gonna kill it. I know they are. This game is gonna just blow sales out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And if it don't, I'll be shocked. But nonetheless, the game looks beautiful, and I cannot wait till it comes out. And I will be getting the big edition, whatever it was called,
The super
at
duper
$330.
magnet. Yeah. Well, that's
I call
awesome.
it the super duper get all my money edition.
Yeah, that's right. Well, March 3rd, 2020. Looks like we're gonna lose Kid for a couple weeks. You think you still got
it's gonna be crazy.
you still got it in you to stay up for 48 hours straight and grind out Final Fantasy?
I will sure try.
That was, it's kind of an inside joke because years ago in my early days of meeting Kid, I'd call him. He's like, "Yeah, no, haven't got up yet. I've been here since Friday, and it's Sunday afternoon." And he's glued to his chair playing Final Fantasy. So I'm curious if you still got the yeah. I'm curious if you still got the stamina to hold up to something like that. I certainly don't think I can do that, but
yeah, I'm gonna give it the best I can. That's for sure.
oh yeah, that's awesome. So the next one coming up, number 8, that we're talking about today is Watch Dogs Legion. So this looked very interesting, and I think there is. I think there's some conversation about that. Is do they really have what it takes to put this out? Because they're putting out um, a really ambitious game that you can control every player in the game. I'm interested to see, like, when you talk about these huge, redefining technologies that go in there. Is it too much to chew? When you look at things
Right.
like Star Citizen, hate to bring that back up again, but it's always a talking point because it's so ambitious. It's out there, and there's a lot of work that goes into doing that. You think about trying to control every player in the game. The game looks cool, kind of like what would you say, like a Payday type graphic, probably a little enhanced. Kind of has some of
Yeah,
that feel to it.
it's got a Grand Theft Auto feel.
Mm-hmm. And
It's I never could get into them because, like you said, it's so in depth, and with my schedule and everything going on, and that's another reason why I like my consoles, because I can pop in, get some stuff done, mindless, gaming, and then get back out. Where you got stuff like this, you got to think really hard, and I'm not good at that.
yeah, and not just that, but you've got to section aside time to go do that. It's not. I feel like it's not a game that you're going to sit down and play and walk away and come back 2 weeks later and know what the heck you're doing.
Oh yeah, that's been my biggest struggle with all these games, especially after Black Friday. Just racking in a bunch of them, I lose control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree, because that's my only reluctance to this. But hey, I like when we keep breaking the boundaries of what's possible. I think a lot of kids out there and a lot of people with time to spare will enjoy this, because they could probably sink 1,000 hours into this game and still have some upside, or still have some opportunity to experience more of it. So pretty exciting in that manner. But keep your eyes out for Watch Dogs Legion and see what that looks like.
It does look good.
Yeah, I think so. Speaking of looking good, going on to number 9, kid, this is probably one of the biggest releases of the year, and this one is coming out this year, looking at September 10th. But this is always a much anticipated title, right up there with all your Call of Duties, Battlefields. This is always one that you pay attention to, that there's a lot of people engaged in. So I'm sure you've played a little bit of this. What do you think about this Gears 5 or Gears of War 5 coming out this year?
It's going to be good. It's going to be the one that gets me on a dadgum Xbox, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I've played the old one. I love the saw and the gun. The gameplay was always good and structured real well. It's going to be good. I'm overdue for an Xbox because I've been on the PS4 wagon for too long. So
Yeah.
this is going to be the one that probably gets me on that.
That pushes you over the edge. Yeah, it does. I mean, Gears is, such a huge franchise. It's one you always look out for. A lot of people are going to, I feel like this is going to be one of the top stream games of the time, and it'll carry for a good amount of time. That it's one of those that have staying power. Everybody anticipates it. I'm excited. The graphics look fantastic. In the trailers that you watched, if you watched E3 or you gone through that. So really stay tuned. I think that'll be super exciting to see Gears come out and bring, that along with, as we talked about, the console wars. You got that. You got Halo releasing shortly thereafter. It's definitely big wins for the Xbox franchise. So exciting to see it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this episode, our part 1 tonight, talking about one that, man, I really have to say I anticipate this, because you've got a couple of key players working together. Now, I will have to say with reluctance about this, whenever I see Game of Thrones attached to anything, my immediate thought is they're going to miss their expectation date by years, if not longer, right? And it's worth the wait. I'm not going to complain about it, but this is a little bitter party of one here, saying that, it took me years and years and years when I got hooked into the Game of Thrones books, and then I had to wait till this year to figure out how it ended. And I started that, 10 plus years ago. So when I see that, so you've got the creator from Software that did the Dark Souls series, working with the Game of Thrones writer George R.R. Martin on this new game called Elden Ring. Not a lot out there. They've got just an announcement that, hey, it's coming out in true George R.R. Martin fashion. Give you a little teaser, make you sit on it for 2 or 3 years, and then it comes out. But we're hearing that we're going to see it quicker than that. I don't believe it yet, but I will. What do you think about this? Are you excited? What's your thoughts about this Elden Ring?
All right. So just for the fact that it says the company behind Dark Souls series makes me excited.
Mm-hmm.
That game, when I first bought it and played it, I got so mad, frustrated. I'm taking it back to GameStop. I can't do this game. It's too difficult. So I gave it another shot before I did the next day. It's by far one of my favorite games. It's the gameplay, I don't know, it's just so different than anything I've ever played. So just seeing that and then seeing Games of Thrones, I'm like, oh my God, that's like a perfect pair right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I could kiss whoever come up with this. So oh man, it's going to be great. I cannot wait.
Is it a perfect pair because it's a difficult to watch Game of Thrones mixed with a difficult to play Dark Souls?
Man, I didn't think about it like that, but yes, absolutely. Oh man.
Yeah, I rank Game of Thrones right up there with some of the best, worst things to ever involve yourself in, that it's so trying and tormenting. And I feel like, and I've heard Kid talk about Dark Souls. I never got into that, but every time that comes up, it's a sore subject because he loved it and hated it. Hated it at first, loved it later.
Yeah, and like the characters and stuff they do in the Dark Souls series are just amazing and up my alley and taste, man. Like if I ever got tattoos, it would probably be Dark Souls characters.
Well, and I think I think when you talk about somebody like From Software that puts so much passion, energy into developing a really quality product, where I was cracking on George R. Martin, it's not really a slight, because he does take his time and craft one of the biggest stories, original stories of the decade, right? Or of the last 2 decades, if you will, since it took him that long. But look at the frenzy that came around Game of Thrones. Well, you partner that with somebody like this who's going to take this kind of care and passion with building a really great product. Man, I agree. It's exciting. I'm excited thinking about it. That's one I'm definitely going to have to kind of keep my eyes on, because there's not a lot of details around it. I just know with those two, the hype is going to be real. The hype is going to be awesome. So looking forward to that coming out.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be so good. There's no way they can drop the ball on this. It cannot happen.
Yep, I think it is amazing. Bandai Namco, one of the longest standing game manufacturers out there. So really good. Hope you guys enjoyed the first installment of the E3. There might even be 17 of them. Who knows? Because there's so much content. I mean, you guys got to really think about, just Xbox alone went through 60 titles in their snippet of what they're coming out and releasing on Xbox, along with their hardware. And everybody was at this frenzied moment. Everybody's taking note that, hey, gaming is here. It's really coming into its own, and there is just tons of stuff coming out. It is just blowing through title after title, some remakes, some new, but exciting to see this time of year. So just wrapping up this episode, what are your final thoughts on the first 10 that we covered? What's your initial thoughts on just looking at some of the E3 hype that's been out here?
Oh, man. Final Fantasy VII for sure. I cannot wait. The Elden Ring is up there in my list, along with Cyberpunk. Like those 3 for sure are most anticipated coming out the top 10.
Yep. I would agree that those are, when you're looking at the top 10 or the first 10 that we went over, those I would agree with. That I'm got to say I'm going to lean towards the Elden Ring being my number one. I'm excited, but I mean, Cyberpunk, come on. You know, our particular and my particular fascination with Borderlands. I think it's going to be up that alley. It's going to be in that avenue. That'll be pretty dang awesome. So hope you guys are as excited as we are about E3 and
Oh
some of the
yeah.
announcements. And, you know, you guys hang out. Just queue up the next episode. We'll go right through the last half. And as promised, I'll wrap up with some of my future of gaming thoughts and what you can do to get ready for that, which I think it'll be all good news. Talking about some of the new technologies in which we're going to be able to watch and deal with gaming. So, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Appreciate you. And we will holler at you on the next one.
Later, yo.